Ever get that feeling like someone's watching you, you know, a little too closely? Well, imagine that feeling, but the eyes watching you belong to a monkey. And I'm not talking about just any monkey. No. This monkey's decked out in full Roman soldier gear.
Sounds like something straight out of a movie,
Right. But believe it or not, that's exactly what archaeologists found up in the Pyrenees Mountains back in 2001.
Wild, isn't it?
Absolutely wild. And that's just one of the many stories we're going to dive into today. We're going to explore all the fascinating ways monkeys have popped up throughout human history.
We're talking monkey soldiers, monkey athletes, monkey movie stars,
Yeah.
even a monkey mayor. You name it, we've got it.
So if you're into those kinds of stories,
Mm.
the ones that make you think and laugh at the same time, then make sure you hit that subscribe button because we've got a whole lot more deep dives like this one coming your way.
You know, it's always fascinated me how monkeys have managed to capture our imaginations for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
They're similar enough to us to be relatable, but they also do some pretty incredible things. Over the years, we've seen them as pets, performers, even symbols of our own cultures. It's really remarkable.
Yeah, and one of the earliest examples of this, of monkeys taking on these human roles,
Mm.
comes from the Roman Empire.
Exactly. Back then, Barbary apes, also known as macaques, were incredibly popular.
Popular how?
Well, they were kept as pets, of course, but they were also used as mascots, particularly for military units.
Ah, which brings us back to that incredible discovery in the Pyrenees,
Yeah.
a 5th century burial site right on the border between Spain and France. They found a macaque buried there.
With a full set of military equipment.
Yeah, belt buckles, iron plates, the whole 9 yards. Crazy.
What makes this discovery so interesting is that the Romans didn't typically bury people with grave goods, especially not military gear.
So what's the thinking there? Why was this monkey buried like that?
Well, some scholars believe it points to a strong barbarian influence.
Barbaric?
Yeah, groups like the Visigoths. Remember, this was the late 5th century when Roman power in the West was starting to crumble.
Right, right.
So it's possible that this monkey was a Visigothic mascot, or maybe even a Roman monkey decked out in barbarian style.
That's like a historical riddle.
It really is. And it raises all sorts of questions about the role of monkeys in these ancient societies. Were they just pets, or did they hold some deeper significance?
Good question. And it seems like monkeys weren't just found in military contexts either.
Oh, absolutely not. They popped up all over the place in homes, literature, even stories about the ruling elite.
I read about this Caliph, Yazid was his name, who lived in the early Islamic period.
Mhm.
This guy owned a monkey, Abu Qasis.
Yeah.
And get this, he used to enter this monkey in horse races.
Wait a minute, a monkey in a horse race?
Yep, and Abu Qasis would be riding a donkey. Can you imagine that? A monkey on a donkey racing against horses?
That's hilarious.
Right. Makes you wonder what the crowds thought of that. But it's also fascinating because it might be connected to some of the negative attitudes towards monkeys that emerged later on, particularly among certain Muslim scholars. They associated monkeys, especially those owned by rulers, with Roman decadence and the excesses of, Caesarism. Interesting. So monkeys as symbols of status and cultural identity. We see it with the barbarian warrior, the caliph, and even later on, too. But hey, let's fast forward a few centuries, shall we? Let's go to 1820s London. That's where we meet a monkey who basically took the sporting world by storm.
You know about Jocko Macacaco.
Jocko Macacaco, the one and only.
This Jocko guy was something else, a real star, right?
Yeah, he was the main attraction at the Westminster Pit.
Oh, yeah, the Westminster Pit. That place was notorious. Brutal animal fights, you name it.
Badger baiting, rat killing, dog fights, you name it, they had it. Big crowds, big money, lots of betting. That was a rough scene.
And Jocko was right in the thick of it, huh?
Oh, yeah. He was going up against dogs twice his size and winning. There are even etchings of him in the British Museum. Can you believe that?
No kidding. What kind of monkey was he, anyway?
Well, from the pictures, some folks think he was a rhesus macaque. He's got this muzzle and these pointy ears. Pretty distinctive. But where he actually came from, nobody's really sure. It's kind of a mystery.
A mystery, huh? Sounds intriguing.
Oh, it is. There are all sorts of stories floating around. Some say he belonged to a sailor and he attacked the guy, bit off 3 of his fingers.
Ouch.
Others say he was a wild monkey, and these 2 dogs were set on him, and he managed to fight them off.
Wow. That's quite an entrance. So how did he fight? I mean, a monkey against a dog, it doesn't seem like a fair fight.
Right. Well, apparently Jocko was pretty clever about it. There's a book, Pictures of Sporting Life and Character, that describes his fighting style.
Oh, really? What did it say?
So it said he would present his back or neck to the dog, almost like he was giving up, right?
Uh-huh.
But then you use that opportunity to grab the dog's arm or chest and then eventually go for the windpipe.
Yikes. Brutal, but I guess it worked.
Worked like a charm, yeah. But, when you think about the spectacle of these fights, all the money people were betting.
You gotta wonder if everything was on the up and up, right?
Exactly. I mean, there are people back then who suspected some foul play.
Like what?
Well, there was this politician, a guy named George Charles Grantley Fitzharding Berkeley. Quite a name.
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
Anyway, he and a few others thought the dogs might have been injured before the fights,
Yep.
to give Jocko an advantage.
To make the fights more exciting, more dramatic.
Yeah, and probably to guarantee those big payouts. And Jocko's most famous fight, the one everyone talks about, that one's especially controversial.
Which one was that?
It was against this dog named Puss, owned by a former boxing champion, Tom Cribb.
Tom Cribb. Wow, so this was a big deal, huh?
Huge. But the thing is, nobody agrees on what actually happened. Some say Puss was badly hurt. Others say Jocko died months later from something completely unrelated. And even how Jocko died, that's debated too.
Oh, how so?
Well, there was this anti-cruelty activist, Richard Martin. He wrote about how Jocko's jaw was torn off in the fight and how he died 2 hours later. Just awful.
Yeah, sounds gruesome.
But then the owner of the Westminster Pit said he had Jocko stuffed and put on display, which wouldn't be possible if his jaw was ripped off, right?
That's true. So another mystery.
It is, yeah. But it's interesting, isn't it? It gives us a glimpse into the whole world of entertainment back then. The brutality, the intrigue, it's all there. But it also shows us how people's attitudes towards animals were starting to change.
Yeah, you had organizations popping up dedicated to protecting animals. It's kind of wild when you think about it. These groups were often formed even before ones focused on protecting children.
Shows you how much things have shifted over time, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What was considered acceptable then is totally unthinkable now. But hey, are you ready for a change of pace?
What you got in mind?
Let's trade in the grit and grime of the fighting pit for something a little more glamorous.
Glamorous, you say?
We're going to Hollywood.
Hollywood, you mean?
Chimpanzees, yeah. They've played a pretty big role in Hollywood, believe it or not. From those early black and white films to hanging out with rock stars, they've left their mark on the silver screen and beyond.
Now that's a story I want to hear.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Monkeys have served in wars alongside us. They've entertained us on stage and screen. They've even held positions of authority.
It really makes you question those old assumptions about, intelligence, empathy, what it means to be human.
We started this whole deep dive by imagining a world where monkeys are politicians and soldiers and artists. And while that might seem far-fetched, these stories show us that, well, maybe it's not so crazy after all.
They've always been there, right alongside us, reflecting our behaviors, beliefs, even our mistakes.
Holding up a mirror to humanity.
Exactly. And maybe by studying their stories, we can learn a thing or two about ourselves, about our place in the world.
So the next time you see a monkey at the zoo, in a movie, wherever, remember these stories. Remember the history, the humor, the humanity.
And who knows, maybe there are even more stories out there just waiting to be discovered, hidden away in history books, waiting to be brought to light.
Well, if you've got any amazing monkey tales, we'd love to hear them. Share your thoughts, your questions, and be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into all those fascinating corners of history, science, and culture. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.